A standard roll of Charmin contained 650 sheets in 1966. Today, that same brand sells a roll with 56 sheets and calls it normal. That is a reduction of over 90% in the product you are paying for, and you are paying more for it than ever. This did not happen by accident. Three corporations control roughly 65% of every roll of toilet paper sold in America, and they have spent 6 decades making the roll smaller, the sheets thinner, and the packaging more confusing so you never figure out what they took from you. We are going to expose exactly how they pulled it off, reveal the billion-dollar empire profiting from the deception, and show you the only 3 things you should actually be spending your money on instead. If you walk down a grocery aisle today, you see dozens of brands. Charmin, Scott, Cottonelle, Angel Soft, Quilted Northern, Sparkle. You assume these are different companies competing for your business, the same way Ford competes with Toyota or Pepsi competes with Coca-Cola. You trust that competition keeps quality high and prices fair. That is an illusion. Americans consume more toilet paper per person than any other country on Earth, roughly 28 pounds per year. We represent 4% of the world's population, but use over 20% of the global supply, and almost all of it flows through 3 corporations. Charmin, Bounty, and Puffs are all owned by Procter Gamble. Scott, Cottonelle, Kleenex, and Viva are all owned by Kimberly-Clark. And Angel Soft, Quilted Northern, Brawny, Sparkle, and Dixie are all owned by Georgia-Pacific, which itself is a subsidiary of Koch Industries, and the sprawling private empire built by Charles and David Koch. These 3 parent companies manufacture roughly 65% of every roll sold in the United States. But it gets worse. Many of the store brands you think are independent alternatives are made by the same conglomerates. Costco's Kirkland toilet paper is partly manufactured by Georgia-Pacific. When you think you are escaping the oligopoly by reaching for the store brand, you are often handing your money right back to one of the same 3 corporations. And because there is almost no real competition at the manufacturing level, they can all shrink their products at the same time, knowing you have nowhere else to go. But how did 3 companies pull off the greatest disappearing act in consumer history without anyone noticing? The answer begins with a man named Edgar Dworsky. He is a former Massachusetts Assistant Attorney General and a former consultant to the Federal Trade Commission. For over 30 years, Dworsky has been tracking product sizes from a condo in Somerville, Massachusetts, armed with a kitchen scale and a website called Mouseprint. He is the one who documented the full timeline of what happened to your toilet paper. In 1966, a Charmin advertisement confirmed 650 single-ply sheets per roll. By 1979, that number had dropped to 400. Around 1990, Charmin switched to 2-ply, and the count fell to 170 sheets. By 2013, a regular Charmin roll had 82 sheets. Today it has roughly 56, but Charmin did not just reduce the number of sheets. They also shrank each sheet from a 4.5-inch square to a rectangle measuring 3.92 inches by 4 inches. Scott 1000 kept its famous sheet count at 1,000, but quietly made each sheet thinner and narrower. Dworsky weighed a 4-pack and found it dropped from 32.2 ounces to 23.6 ounces. That is 27% less paper with the exact same number printed on the package. And here is the detail that should make you furious. When Angel Soft cut its mega roll from 425 sheets to 320, a 25% reduction, Georgia-Pacific told the press the sheets were now 20% thicker. They framed stealing a quarter of your product as an improvement, but the shrinking roll is only half the scam. The system they built to hide it is a masterpiece of consumer confusion. Walk into any Target or Walmart and try to compare toilet paper prices. You will find it is nearly impossible. The industry has invented a naming system designed to prevent you from doing basic math. There are regular rolls, double rolls, mega rolls, super mega rolls, and now mega XL rolls. Dworsky walked into a single Target store and found 11 different Charmin Ultra soft packages on the shelf. One package said 12 equals 27. Another said 12 equals 54. One said 18 equals 72. Another said 18 equals 82. 2 packages were both labeled 12 equals 54, but they contained different numbers of sheets per roll. 352 in one package, 326 in the other. The math does not work because it's not supposed to work. Every one of these comparisons is measured against a phantom product called the regular roll. But the regular roll no longer exists in stores. Dworsky may own one of the last packs, manufactured in 2013. And each brand defines regular differently. Charmin says a regular roll is 55 sheets. Cottonelle says 61. Angel Soft says 80. Quilted Northern defines it as the absurd number of 73.75. They're all comparing to a different invisible baseline, which means the numbers on the front of every package are functionally meaningless. You cannot compare Charmin to Angel Soft. You cannot even compare Charmin to Charmin. Now here is where this stops being an annoyance and starts becoming a political scandal. In December of 2023, Senator Bob Casey of Pennsylvania released a report using Bureau of Labor Statistics data showing that household paper products had become 34.9% more expensive per unit since January of 2019, and 10.3% of that total increase was not from inflation at all. It was from shrinkflation. The companies raised the price and shrank the product at the same time. Remember the toilet paper panic of 2020? On March 12th of that year, toilet paper sales surged 734% in a single day. Within 2 weeks, it was out of stock at 70% of American grocery stores. The Big Three told the public they were doing everything they could, but here is what happened after the shortage ended. And between 2020 and 2023, household paper product prices rose a cumulative 35%. Input costs like wood pulp and energy have since come back down, but the prices never did. Procter Gamble's gross profit margin hit 51.4% in fiscal 2024, exceeding pre-pandemic levels. Kimberly-Clark's net income surged 44% in a single year to $2.55 billion. The companies used the pandemic as a launching pad for permanent price increases and then layered shrinkflation on top. Casey introduced the Shrinkflation Prevention Act in February of 2024. President Biden endorsed it during his State of the Union address. The bill would have directed the Federal Trade Commission to classify shrinkflation as a deceptive trade practice. It never received a floor vote. Casey lost re-election in November by 15,200 votes. His co-sponsors also lost their seats. The bill died when the 118th Congress ended in January of 2025 and has not been reintroduced. The Government Accountability Office later confirmed that 93% of shrinkflated products saw no significant decline in units sold. Consumers say they hate shrinkflation, but they keep buying because the Big Three have made alternatives almost invisible. France became the first country to require mandatory shrinkflation disclosure labels in July of 2024. The United States has done nothing. But the financial deception is not even the worst part of this story. The environmental destruction behind your toilet paper is something the industry desperately does not want you to know about. And to understand it, you need to know who is behind the brands. Koch Industries bought Georgia-Pacific in 2005 for $21 billion. That single acquisition gave the Koch brothers, who built one of the largest political donor networks in American history, control over Angel Soft, Quilted Northern, and dozens of other household products. Since then, Georgia-Pacific has racked up a $600,000 EPA fine for Clean Air Act violations at a mill in Crossett, Arkansas, a town with one of the highest cancer toxin exposure rates in the nation. In March of 2024, a 32-year-old machine operator was crushed to death by an unguarded packing machine at a Georgia-Pacific mill in Camas, Washington. The state fined the company $648,000. Employees told inspectors that a safety policy had not been enforced for years. The Natural Resources Defense Council has published its Issue with Tissue scorecard every year since 2019, grading over 150 products. Charmin gets an F, Quilted Northern gets an F, Angel Soft scored 4 out of 600 possible points. These grades are not about softness or quality. They are about the fact that America's biggest toilet paper brands are manufactured almost entirely from virgin wood pulp harvested by clear-cutting the Canadian boreal forest. 1 million acres of that forest are cut down every single year. The boreal is home to over 600 indigenous communities and is the last refuge of boreal caribou, of which only 14 out of 51 herds are considered self-sustaining. The forest stores approximately 300 billion tons of carbon, nearly twice what exists in all of the world's recoverable oil reserves. When you clear cut it to make toilet paper, that carbon goes into the atmosphere and the forest takes decades to recover. Less than 2% of the American toilet paper market uses recycled fiber. In Europe, that number is 30%. In Japan, it is 60%. America is not behind the rest of the world because recycled toilet paper does not work. America is behind because the big three make more money selling you virgin fiber, and they have no competitive pressure to change. And here is the fact that proves this is a choice and not a limitation. Georgia-Pacific, the same parent company that makes Angel Soft, which gets an F, also makes a brand called Aria. The NRDC gave Aria an A+. The same corporation is fully capable of producing sustainable toilet paper. They simply choose not to do it for the products that 95% of Americans actually buy. So if the entire toilet paper aisle is designed to confuse you, overcharge you, and destroy old-growth forests in the process, what are you supposed to do? You have three options, and each one breaks the oligopoly in a different way. Option 1. Switch to bamboo or recycled toilet paper. Brands like Who Gives a Crap, which donates 50% of its profits to sanitation nonprofits, earned an NRDCA+ for their recycled product. A seventh generation, Markel, Green Forest, and 365 by Whole Foods also earned top grades. These brands use recycled fiber or fast-growing bamboo instead of ancient forest. Who Gives a Crap sells 48 rolls for $68. That works out to less than half a cent per sheet. Charmin Ultra Soft costs 55.7 cents per 100 sheets. The sustainable option is not always the most expensive one. You just have to do the math that the big three made impossible on purpose. And here is the part that should make you angry. Procter Gamble recently launched Charmin Ultra Bamboo, which earned an NRDCB. They proved they can reformulate. They just will not do it across their flagship products unless consumers force the issue with their wallets. Option 2. Install a bidet. This is the best-kept secret in personal finance. In Japan, 80% of homes have one. In Italy, bidets have been legally required in new construction since 1975. In the United States, the number is roughly 12%. A basic bidet attachment costs $25 to $100 and reduces your toilet paper consumption by 50 to 75%. For a family of 4, the attachment pays for itself in 2 to 4 months. A bidet uses about 1/8 of a gallon per use. Manufacturing a single roll of toilet paper requires 37 gallons of water. The math is not close. During the 2020 shortage, bidet company Tushy saw its revenue jump from $8 million to $40 million in a single year because Americans finally discovered what the rest of the world already knew. On option 3, if you insist on buying from the traditional aisle, stop looking at the brand name and start looking at the price per sheet. Ignore the words mega, super mega, and double. Flip the package over. Find the total sheet count. Divide the price by the total sheets. That is the only number that tells the truth. The unit price labels on store shelves often use different measurements for different brands, per roll for one, per 100 sheets for another, per square foot for a third. The inconsistency is not an accident, but if you do the math yourself, you take away the single most powerful weapon these corporations have, which is your confusion. The era of the honest toilet paper roll is over. 3 companies control the aisle. They have made the product smaller, the price higher, the packaging incomprehensible, and the environmental cost invisible. They did it slowly enough that nobody noticed, and they did it together because there is no real competition to stop them. A 73-year-old man with a kitchen scale in Massachusetts has done more to expose this than the entire federal government. The Shrinkflation Prevention Act is dead. The FTC has not acted, and 1 million acres of boreal forest will fall again this year so that Procter Gamble can sell you a roll with 56 sheets and call it Super Mega. Do not let the label fool you. Count the sheets, do the math, and never underestimate the power of a $25 bidet attachment against a $30 billion industry. If you found this eye-opening, hit subscribe so you do not miss the next investigation into the products you buy every day.